How did they vote? 15 nations voted in favor of Sri Lanka. 24 nations voted against Sri Lanka. And India was in the August company of Mexico, Russia and Uruguay. But Mexico, Russia, Uruguay and other countries don't have that kind of a strategic interest in Sri Lanka that India does. Have we therefore done something strategically suicidal? On News Hour Debate tonight, Surandran is spokesperson of the Global Tamil Forum. Subramanian Swamy, who's with the NDA now and the chief of the Janata Party. Thank you very much for coming. Mahroof, Raza, strategic affairs expert. Khusboo is leader of the DMK. My first question is to you, Khusboo, today. You know what everyone's saying, including Subramanian Swamy and Mahroof, Raza, that we took care of our political interests, but we did not take care of our strategic interests. That also in what is a non-binding resolution. It wouldn't have mattered at all which way we voted. We've only ended up hurting our long-standing relationship with Sri Lanka. Have we paid too much of a price? Khusboo.
With all due respect to Mr. Mahroof and Dr. Subramanian Swamy, I think they need to stay here in Tamil Nadu and realize the feelings of the people here in Tamil Nadu before they make a statement. We at DMK have not put a gun at the heads of the UPA, asking them to pass a resolution as to what the US had asked to do it. But I think it's more on the basis of humanity as to what has been happening in Sri Lanka to Tamilians. Dr. Subramanian Swamy is definitely aware of what has been happening. We all have seen the videos, we all have heard the news, we all have seen the pictures. It's way beyond humanity as to what has been happening in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, but
and today, the UN resolution which has been passed, it's not a political victory for us. Definitely not. It's nothing to do politically. It's a humanitarian victory, which I think everyone will agree to it.
Okay, Subramanian Swamy. Right at the start of the debate, I like this. Subramanian Swamy, Khusboo is accusing you of not understanding the sentiments of the Tamil people. Surely, yes. She's right. Surely in that case you are in a minority. You take a straw poll on the streets of any city or village in Tamil Nadu and your point of view will be in a minority, Dr. Swamy.
Well, you're in Assami, you wouldn't know what's happening in Tamil Nadu. I was told the same thing when I was fighting this 2G spectrum case, that I am hurting all the Tamils and sending them to jail. And when the voting took place, we knew what happened. Then on the Skodankulam, I said this is a foreign-inspired agitation. That time also I was told on your program this is a Tamil sentiment. And what happened we know now. Jayalalitha has done a 180-degree turn and the whole thing has collapsed. And as far as Sri Lanka is concerned, it is such a hypocritical thing on the part of the so-called pro-Tamil parties. What has happened is that the atrocities are committed by the army, and the Tamil parties then put up the commander-in-chief of the army as their candidate for president. Now, you mean to say that the commander-in-chief had no role to play at all in this so-called atrocities that these people have compiled in British television? I think this whole thing is a bogus thing. What is really bad.
One minute, Mr. Swamy, you're getting rebut number one from Khusboo.
Reacting to it. Sri Lankan government is not reacting to it. That is what the whole question is about. We are not. It's not that we are absolutely dislocated. We do not know as to
Sri Lankan
how the army has been responding to it. But then the Sri Lankan government needs to understand and respond.
Fighting LTT was India's war.
It was not a war. They created a war. Please, LTT was never a war.
What do you mean? LTT killed Rajiv Gandhi. That was an act of a humanitarian.
It killed our Prime Minister in his prime. It killed our Prime Minister in his prime. We are not here to debate on what happened to Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, but we are here to debate.
So we don't say that this is a Tamil attack on Rajiv Gandhi. We know we can make a distinction.
It's not. We are not discussing LTT war. We are saying as to what are you discussing? Kind of atrocities.
You say atrocities have taken place 3 years ago. How can you it be raised now?
Atrocities
Even the
have been
UN
going.
Charter
The Sri Lankan government
only
has
says
not been
current human
responding.
rights violations
You
should be
have
taken into account.
the army chief, who you rightly said is part of the atrocities. He is the candidate for the presidential candidate. Why
Yes,
is
on
Sri Lankan government
behalf
not
of the
responding to
Tamil
this?
National Alliance, the so-called Tamil parties. We have to think as Indians first and Tamils afterwards.
Nobody's
I think this is what DMK has to learn. That this country is India first and then Tamil afterwards.
It's not a war between Sri Lanka and India. Please do not pass out a wrong message to the people. We have lovely ties. We have people traveling from Sri Lanka to India, India to Sri Lanka. Let's not create.
I'm intervening.
Let us not create a fear.
I'm intervening.
Fear by saying it's a war.
May I intervene? May I intervene?
It's not a war. Mr. Subramanian Swamy, please.
May I intervene? And my question goes to Surendran.
And Sri Lanka.
Surandran, spokesperson of the Global Tamil Forum. A strong constituency in our country represented by Subramanian Swamy and Mahroof Raza, who say we have forsaken our national interests in trying to support the LTTE and their backers. Before I get Mahroof in, Mr. Surendran, floor is yours.
Sure, thank you very much. With all due respect to Mr. Subramanian Swamy, it is not the Tamils accusing Sri Lanka of anything. It is the UN panel of experts. These are independent experts appointed by the UN Secretary General. They accuse Sri Lanka of alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity. I don't know where he gets his facts from. In the last leg of the war, over 40,000 Tamil civilians, mothers, brothers, sick and injured children were killed by Sri Lanka targeting hospitals, Sri Lanka targeting the no-fire zone that it own designated no-fire zone, and not sending enough food and medicine for children and injured people. Now, Mr. Subramanian Swamy can defend Rajapaksa because I don't know why, but I'm sure.
One sec, Subramanian Swamy is rebutting you. One sec.
Tell me about
I didn't interrupt. I'm really sorry. I didn't interrupt you when you started.
Mr. Swamy, okay, one sec, Mr. Swamy. Mr. Swamy, you come in after Mr. Surendran completed.
You had your chance. Let me finish my.
After our guest from London, I'm back to you, Mr. Swamy. Yeah. Go on.
Hold on, just let me finish. Mr. Swamy must go and read his own records and find out what is the international community saying. International community is not just one person. This is international community, and this is not just Tamil people. The entire India is calling for a vote in favor, which India has done, and we are very grateful. And it is on the humanitarian and humane thing the Indians have done. It is the Indian government that we need to be grateful to. It is their moral duty and moral right, because there are 60 million Tamil people in Tamil Nadu. Thank you.
What difference does it make? Let me bring this down to basics and ask you a follow-up question, Mr. Surendran. What difference does it make which way we voted? Because this is, as far as I know, this resolution for promoting reconciliation and accountability is a non-binding resolution.
You must allow me to answer. India is supposed to be the superpower in the region. India is a big country with 60 million Tamil people. It needs to think about the Indian people's sentiments. It's not about you, sir. It's about the Indian people, the rest of the people. There are over 1 billion Indians who will support this resolution, which the government has done. I'm really sorry to disappoint you. This is not the finish. This is just the beginning.
Okay.
And you will see facts coming out that will just destroy your credibility.
Mr. Surendran, I'm coming back to you. However, you say India is the superpower in the region. What about the superpower in the world? What about its absolute hypocrisy? What about the bloodshed it carries out and the civilian casualties in Afghanistan? What about the 12,793 people killed in the last 6 years? Who are they to preach to us? I'm getting in Mahroof Raza at this stage. Mahroof, why do you think the argument being presented by Khusboo and especially Mr. Surendran is flawed?
Well, Arnab, see, I'd like to bring a little more sort of practical objectivity to it all.
Sure.
I think, there is a lot of emotion riding the opinion of distinguished speakers. But please try and look at it from India's long-term perspective. I am not denying that there is a certain element of Tamil sentiment that needs to be addressed by New Delhi. But in the larger context of building relations with neighbors, and we have been in fact steadily losing ground with our neighbors in Nepal, in Bangladesh, I mean even in Maldives, which we considered our backyard, the Chinese have become influential. And now we've lost the space to the Chinese in Sri Lanka, because this thing is going to go a long way in Colombo-Delhi relations. The second point, India has traditionally never voted
How are you so sure of that?
Specific resolutions. It is there on record, Arnab. India does not vote for nation-specific resolution. India could have abstained, and your point itself, that had India abstained, would it have made a difference? Let the resolution go through. India has tried to soften the damage. It has tried to put a soothing balm for Sri Lanka by saying, give Sri Lanka time, give it time to come around it. Where Colombo went wrong post the military campaign was that they forgot to address the serious grievances of the Tamil people who were caught up in the crossfire. But having said that, let me also tell you that, as you've rightly brought out, the Americans who pushed this resolution are trying to now alter the entire definition of sovereignty worldwide. They've done it in Libya, they're doing it elsewhere, and please remember, it was only 15 years ago that we survived by the skin of our teeth with a resolution against India that was mooted in Geneva on human rights on Kashmir.
That's true.
We are opening the doors for embarrassing ourselves. We are opening the doors and we are letting...
That is exactly the point.
Like Mamata Banerjee and DMK to scuttle larger foreign policy initiative. Mamata Banerjee didn't let the Teesta agreement go through. The DMK is fasting and saying, get this resolution in place. If we are saying India voting or not voting is not going to affect our relationship with the Tamil population or this, we could have put pressure on Sri Lanka in other ways to address the Tamil grievance without going public about it.
We have put ourselves in an American corner. We have put ourselves in an American corner, and America is not going to stand by us. Are they? No, one sec. I already have a reaction from Mr. Surandran. Have we or have we not? Floor is back to Subramanian Swamy. Have we put ourselves in an American corner? We isolated. The non-aligned countries have voted today. Largely non-aligned countries voted with Sri Lanka. Have we made ourselves vulnerable?
We have clearly emerged as a junior partner of the Americans. This resolution should have been substituted by our own resolution, where we should have asked the Sri Lankan government to devolve power in their constitution. These human rights excesses are supposed to have committed 3 years ago. UN normally doesn't take up anything which is not current or which is imminent. And this is the first time I've seen something which happened 3 years ago that we brought. And what about the LTT human rights excesses? No mention of that. The government of India, if it was not so spineless in front of the Americans, they should have brought in that amendment. That the LTT should have also been condemned.
Here's the charge.
Brought some balance.
Here's the charge. The charge, I put it in one sentence, that in the process of backing human rights violations against a group responsible for the assassination of an Indian Prime Minister, we have compromised our own strategic interests. Today we are surrounded by nations, China, Maldives, Bangladesh, all of whom support Sri Lanka. We put ourselves in an American corner. Mr. Surandran, I saw you smirking when Subramanian Swamy was making his comments on that. Why do you have this sense of disbelief about what I just said?
Well, I'll tell you something. I agree with Mr. Subramanian Swamy. I completely agree with him on this point, that India should have led this resolution, and India should have insisted that the political solution that is for the future of the Tamil people, the devolution of power, should have been a prime part of this resolution. I also agree with him that the resolution should have said that both sides should be investigated. It's not just the government of Sri Lanka, it's also the LTTE should have been investigated. I agree with him on those two. Let me go back to the previous gentleman. With all due respect to you, sir,
Mahroof.
3 years ago, or however long ago, if you have a serial killer living next door to you, would you consider your children and your wife and everybody else safe to be living in the neighborhood? Or would you take up and go to the police and say, investigate because we think there is a serial killer next door. It's exactly like that. India is a country where Mahatma Gandhi was born. India is a country where Jawaharlal Nehru was born. You know, these are people, distinguished people who have credibility in the world. I am very ashamed that the distinguished panel has a view of just having security as
can I, before Mahroof comes in, can I ask a question, please, to you? My question simply is, Mr. Surandran, you're so passionately arguing on this side. Suppose I say I want a resolution to be passed against the United States of America for all the killings and the inhuman activity that they've carried on in Afghanistan. Now, want the same logic which they apply to us to be thrown back at them, because they are responsible. In this year alone, they have killed 410 civilians. In 2011, 410 civilians, 335 injuries. I want a resolution against the United States of America. Will you back me?
It's not the American president who ordered killing of people who surrender. It's not the American president who ordered to shell a no-fire zone. It is not the American president who refused to send enough medicine and food to the people who
Sir, I am quoting. I am sorry. I am sorry, Mr. Surandran. I am quoting.
It's not America which is in the next door.
Mr. Surandran.
It's your country, India.
Mr. Surandran.
And Sri Lanka are next door neighbors.
I'm sorry. My point is,
in India.
I take
there are 60 million
Mr. Surandran,
in India.
Look at it in a global context, please. Yes? Don't look at a regional context. This is a global issue. You're setting a precedent for the Western world.
I asked you a simple question.
Western world to interfere in the sovereignty of a third world nation. That's the point.
I asked you a simple question. If you had a serial killer next door to your house, will you live in that place?
Mahroof answers you. Mahroof.
I just
Maroof's answering you. I'm not answering.
Mr. Surandran, you're asking questions, you're answering them also. Let the other person answer.
No,
the first thing is, you have your agenda very clearly defined. Yeah, hold it. Let me answer that. You have your agenda very clearly defined. You're a spokesperson for the Global Tamil Forum. We are looking at more objectively. I am not saying that we condone all the atrocities that happened against the Tamil. In fact, if you heard me clearly, I made the point that there were other ways that India could have exercised pressure. Remember, India was the country that finally sent its troops in, and we lost more troops in Sri Lanka than we lost in the 71 war with Bangladesh. So we've paid a price for it. We have defended Tamil freedom. Unfortunately, it's the same international countries which today are waving a flag towards Sri Lanka. They damn all for Sri Lanka and the Tamils all these years, except fund global forums like yours, which were then supporting the Tamils in indirect ways. So let's get it all right. You know, you guys are not wearing white gloves. And as far as the Tamils are concerned, they were victims of atrocities, but at the same time, the LTT, are you trying to imply that the LTT was a bunch of saints? They were one of the world's most lethal terrorist organizations. They have started suicide bombing. They have destroyed the Sri Lankan economy.
I am telling you that both
India has
be investigated.
Hold it, Mr. Suren. India has faced the wrath of spillover problems that we had because of the problem that started in Sri Lanka. The state of Tamil Nadu has paid a financial price for it. People have paid a price. So let's not look at it in a very narrow, one-sided way. Let's get more objective about it. And we are talking speaking about it from an Indian perspective.
Narrow-minded way? I don't understand your materiality.
My friend,
40,000
people
hold it.
In a very few
I am
weeks.
looking.
I am talking, Mr. Surendra. I am addressing the issues. I am addressing the issues from 1 billion people, not 40,000. That's peanuts compared to 1 billion.
I want Subramanian Swamy to come into it. Subramanian Swamy had a point.
Billion people.
One sec. Subramanian Swamy has a point to Mr. Surendran. Go on.
I want to say, if the government of India is suddenly concerned with human rights, what about the fact that there were 32% of the population of Bangladesh were Hindus, which is down to 7%? Why don't they speak about that? It has become so fashionable to speak about Sri Lanka, which is supposed to be a country which is supposed to be with you, and you are the head of the SARC. You are supposed to be the overall figure in the SARC, and you found the SARC countries all voting with Sri Lanka this time. We are isolated. We have destroyed whatever we have achieved. And the Prime Minister talks about, look, Asia, the whole of Asia is against you today. So wherever, what have we gained just to please the Americans? This is a shocking, abject surrender.
No, but what about the shocking and abject cover-up of the human rights violations?
Of what?
Of the human rights violations.
Human rights violations.
What about? No, watch it.
Let me tell you. No, wait a minute.
Where's the accountability there, Mr. Swamy?
2 days ago, the United States has come out with a State Department has come out with a human rights report on India. What do they say? Large-scale extrajudicial killing in Kashmir, Manipur, in Chhattisgarh. They have given a list and they say that this should be internationally taken up. And now this is going before the congressional body, and you will find a resolution there very soon. There is no question. The question is, how do we do it? We are part of our family.
One second, Khusboo.
With Sri Lanka more
I want to know if Khusboo has an answer to that. Khusboo, look at it from the national perspective.
We are opening the doors for our own embarrassment.
The same hypocrites who will not talk about the human rights violations they carry out will tomorrow point fingers and say, now I want a resolution on Kashmir, now I want a resolution on the Northeast, now I want a resolution on Nagaland, now I want a resolution on Maoists. They will hold this like a pistol to your head, Khusboo. At that point of time, you're going to have to look back, Dr. Swamy says, and say, I set the wrong precedent. Yes, Khusboo.
I'm not going to respond to Dr. Swamy, with all due respect to him.
Why?
think he's been putting words into people's mouth. For him, I don't know in what way any government which does, he has to act against them. There have been issues where I have definitely applauded Dr. Swamy, but on this issue, I definitely differ from him. I don't think we are isolated just because we have voted for the UN resolution. I don't think just because all these SAARC countries, the neighboring countries, have voted for Sri Lanka and not against Sri Lanka, we are isolated. I think this is the time which India needs to stand together rather than fighting for political gain on a national news. I think we need to stand together.
Who's gaining politically?
We will fight for the rights.
Who's gaining politically?
We will fight for the rights of the country. We will fight for the right of the country. It's not about Tamil people. It's not about Tamilians. It's about an Indian. If Tamil Nadu is in India, every Tamilian is an Indian. Every Kashmiri is an Indian. Every person in Assam is an Indian. Let's deal it as an Indian problem, not as a Tamilian or a state-wise problem. It's not a problem about Kashmir. It's not a problem about Chhattisgarh. It's not a problem about Mirzapur. It's not a problem about West
Bengal. One second, Miss Khusboo.
It's an Indian problem.
Miss Khusboo. Miss Khusboo, may I, with all respect, Miss Khusboo.
Let me finish.
Miss Khusboo, I want one fact to present. One fact.
This issue has been dealt by the Indian government as an Indian problem.
So tonight,
why are you splitting it?
I am looking at it as an Indian problem.
Why are you splitting it? Saying that it's a Tamil problem, it's this problem, it's that problem. It's an Indian problem. Sri Lanka, we have been having talks with Sri Lanka. We have been trying to have talks with them in every other way. Not 3 years,
now
but
tell me
for
something.
many years. But there has been no stopping. There's been no answer for them. If this is going to put a full stop for the atrocities that has been happening on my Indian friend, on my Indian countrymen, then be it. Let it be. We are not isolated. India is a strong country, and we stand the strongest by proving that we will fight for the rights of our countrymen. Let's face it in that way. Why are we splitting it statewide?
What would you say, Ms. Khusboo? Now one sec. Will you allow me? One point. Mahroof, one sec. Ms. Khusboo, take one question from me tonight. One question, and then I open the floor to others. Ms. Khusboo, today you know there are more widows in India of soldiers who died fighting the LTTE. What would you say to the thousands of widows in India whose men died fighting the LTTE? More died fighting the LTTE than died fighting Pakistan or China. Now I'm asking you here, are we to close our eyes to that, Ms. Khusboo? You have nothing to say on that?
We are not closing an eye, Arnab. Even the Indian army was Indian army.
Yes.
We all feel for that. It's not that we are just closed our eyes. We are not blind to what has been happening. That is what I'm trying to say. It was an Indian army. The Indian men were killed. Yes, agreed. Even today, even after Indian army was killed, even today, the basic Indian civilized person, a civilian, an Indian civilian, you should see to feel that how they have been killed. I don't think this kind of atrocity would have happened anywhere in the world. We still have people coming down from Sri Lanka, and we have been giving them asylum on the bordering lines of Sri Lanka and India. Why aren't we taking care of them?
I take a last word to
Mahroof. Why are we
Mahroof.
trying to make it an issue? Wait, Arnab, let's not put it in an issue and say that this is a war between India and Sri Lanka. No, we will have a dialogue.
I want America.
A talk with them.
The
conversation will be there. The ties are not going to break with
We look at our own interests. I want to know which day the United States of America will open itself up for a probe against the inhumanities which it has committed in Iraq and Afghanistan. That day, it will be even Stevens. Till then, the US is being utterly hypocritical with us in asking us to vote with it. I want Mahroof to come in. Mahroof, yes, your response. Last word to Khusboo, please. Khusboo is extremely passionate on the subject. So is Mahroof.
Yes, absolutely. I respect Ms. Khusboo's sentiments and the passion with which she has come across. But let's get a bit real. When we talk of an Indian as a Tamil who is in Sri Lanka, I don't think Tamils in Sri Lanka see themselves as Indians. They are, inheritors of an Indian history and tradition. But they see the reason why the Tamils and the Sinhalese fought in Sri Lanka from 1984 onwards was for precisely this very reason, that the Tamils wanted to be seen as Sri Lankans. Otherwise, the conflict would not have happened. And secondly, in a more specific India-centric foreign policy issue, let us understand that we have of late become hostage to political parties in the regions trying to define India's long-standing foreign policy relations with its neighbors. It's a reality. Whatever the emotions of distinguished speakers on the panel, I feel India's relations with its neighbors have been built over decades of hard work and shouldn't be squandered away.
But Mahroof, strategic relations don't happen in a vacuum. They are built on the core of historical relationships.
Our
responsibility to our brethren,
our
responsibility to our brethren, shared histories.
We could have exercised strategic leverage on Sri Lanka without voting, because their press is now going to present us as enemy, as against China, which is going to be projected as a friend.
I don't know if that should be our only concern. I don't know if that should be our only concern.
No, that's not.
Khusboo's shaking her head. Last word to her.
I don't think that should be our only concern, but believe me, it's going to be a huge loss to us in the long run.
She doesn't agree. Last word to Khusboo today, who has very, very strongly and passionately defended the position that the DMK has taken. Yes, Ms. Khusboo, you heard that argument. Is Mahroof arguing too antiseptically in terms of being too clearly strategic in his perspective today? And are you, on the other hand, responding too much as a politician?
I'm not. I'm not here as a politician today. I'm here as an Indian, as a citizen of this country, where we need to fight for the rights of our civilians. And I think even if DMK has taken a stand, it's a wonderful stand, because they understand what the pain every Indian has been through. I think with all the distinguished guests on the panel today, it's like they were keen to push DMK in a corner and say that they were holding a gunpoint at UPA government and say, pass it in the UN. I don't think that has happened. I'm sure the talks were wonderful, and the relationship between our neighboring countries is not going to end with this one resolution. The relationship is going to be good, and we will continue with that. I don't think we need to live in fear. We need to live with dignity and respect.
I just want to say one thing at the very end. The human rights violations that one saw here are unforgivable. The way in which that young 12-year-old child was killed brutally, if it is true, is unforgivable. Our sentiments are there with those in the manner in which they have killed. Nobody, no prisoner of war, no convict deserves to be treated in the manner that we have seen in so much of that footage. So without taking a position or anything, the human rights violations are unacceptable. The question is out, the jury is out. Mahroof, and of course Khusboo people. Surely, she's right. Surely in that case you're in a minority. You take a straw poll on the streets of any city or village in Tamil Nadu, and your point of view will be in a minority, Dr. Swamy.
Well, you're an Assami, you would know what's happening in Tamil Nadu. I was told the same thing when I was fighting this 2G spectrum case, that I am hurting all the Tamils and sending them to jail. And when the voting took place, we knew what happened. Then on the Skodenkulam, I said this is a foreign-inspired...
Dr. Subramanian Swamy is definitely aware of what has been happening. We all have seen the videos, we all have heard the news, we all have seen the pictures. It's way beyond humanity as to what has been happening in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, but
and today, the UN resolution which has been passed, it's not a political victory for us. Definitely not. It's nothing to do politically. It's a humanitarian victory, which I think everyone will agree to it.
Okay, Subramanian Swamy, right at the start of the debate, I like this. Subramanian Swamy, Khusboo is accusing you of not understanding the sentiments of the Tamil. India now and the chief of the Janata Party. Thank you very much for coming. Mahroof, Raza, strategic affairs expert. Khusboo is leader of the DMK. My first question is to you, Khusboo, today. You know what everyone's saying, including Subramanian Swamy and Mahroof, Raza, that we took care of our political interests, but we did not take care of our strategic interests. That also, in what is a non-binding resolution, it wouldn't have mattered at all which way we voted. We've only ended up hurting our long-standing relationship with Sri Lanka. Have we paid too much of a price? Khusboo. How did they vote? 15 nations voted in favor of Sri Lanka. 24 nations voted against Sri Lanka. And India was in the august company of Mexico, Russia and Uruguay. But Mexico, Russia, Uruguay and other countries don't have that kind of a strategic interest in Sri Lanka that India does. Have we therefore done something strategically suicidal? On News Hour Debate tonight, Surandran is spokesperson of the Global Tamil Forum. Subramanian Swamy, who's with the...
With all due respect to Mr. Mahroof and Dr. Subramanian Swamy, I think they need to stay here in Tamil Nadu and realize the feelings of the people here in Tamil Nadu before they make a statement. We at DMK have not put a gun at the heads of the UPA, asking them to pass a resolution as to what the US had asked to do it. But I think it's more on the basis of humanity as to what has been happening in Sri Lanka to Tamilians. Mr.